Out of all of the amazing players in the NFL draft this season, and out of all the different like position battles, like you got some great ones. Like you got who's gonna go first? Is it gonna be Justin Fields or Zach Wilson? You could go who's gonna be the first running back off the board? Is it gonna be Najee Harris or Travis Etienne? But I think that there is no other kind of who's gonna go first, this guy or this guy, that is better than Devonte Smith versus Jamarr Chase, the two prior winning Biletnikoff winners, the two best wide receivers in their own specific year that they won the Biletnikoff. And I think that this is going to be a very, very hard decision for some of the teams. I think the Miami Dolphins are the team who's going to have to make this decision because they come up with the third pick. You got the Jaguars taking Trevor Lawrence. You got the Jets taking a quarterback. I'm pretty sure they're either going to go with Wilson or Fields, which is another video that I could make, which I'm pretty sure I'm going to make because these videos are very entertaining. The Dolphins, who are they going to be tasked to take? Who do they want on their team? You got two, in my opinion, these guys have kind of different play styles, even though that they're both big deep ball threats. They're both pretty big guys, like tall guys. But I just think from a playstyle standpoint, Jamarr Chase is a much more like physical guy, where Devonte Smith is a guy who will beat you with his feet. He'll make plays with his feet. He's a great route runner and everything. Well, Jamarr is just a guy who goes up and catches every ball. So they are, in my opinion, well, Devonte catches every ball too. Like, I have to be honest, Devonte is absolutely unbelievable. But that's what I'm going to get into in this video because it's going to be a very, very interesting topic to talk about. And leading up to this draft day, this is what, out of all the prop bets that are going to be in the NFL draft, this is the one that no one is going to have a clue, because I could honestly see this going either way. I would not be surprised if Jamarr Chase is the first off the board. I would not be surprised if Devonte Smith is first off the board. I would be surprised if it's Jalen Waddle, even though he is an amazing wide receiver and will be the third taken off the board. It's just that these two guys are sure things. These two guys are guys who are going to make an impact as soon as they step on the field, and I can't wait to get into it. So getting into it, we have to start off with each of their stats, and I'm only going to take the season that they won the Biletnikoff because Jamarr Chase only played one season other than his sophomore season where he won the Biletnikoff for LSU. So I'm just taking their best season each, which was their both most recent season. So I'm going off of their most recent stat line. Obviously, Jamarr Chase opts out of this season, did not play. Devonte Smith decides to come back to Alabama, has a monster season, wins the Heisman. So should we start off with first? Let's start off with Jamarr Chase. Jamarr Chase in 2019, he was a sophomore, played 14 games, 84 receptions, 1,780 yards for a 21.2 average with 20 touchdowns. Rushing, he only went for one attempt for 5 yards, so nothing really much there. But man, 1,780 yards, you have 20 touchdowns in an absolutely stacked lineup of receivers and just offensive talent in total. Obviously, you had Joe Burrow passing you balls, which helps. You have Justin Jefferson, who's setting records for wide receiver rookies in the NFL this season with the Minnesota Vikings. You had him also in your receiving corps, also along with that Terrace Marshall, who's looking to be yet another first-round pick out of that LSU wide receiver corps. And then you have Thaddeus Moss, who's still a monster tight end. Clyde Edwards-Helaire in the backfield, who is a huge pass-catching running back in the backfield for LSU. So you were able to put up the stats with tons and loads of talent on that LSU team. And of course, you win the national championship. Jamarr Chase, who was it? It was Jefferson who had the massive game in the Peach Bowl, I think it was, against Oklahoma. But Jamarr was just a guy who was constantly having a big game. Every single game, he was a deep threat. I remember him catching a couple against Clemson in the national championship. He had one deep ball one, and he had one, I think it must have been a 20-yard in the corner of the end zone, something like that, if I can remember the national championship game against Clemson correctly. So he shows up in the big games. Jamarr Chase is just a guy who's a freak of nature athlete. He's going to catch every ball. He runs his routes really, really nice, and just a guy that, even though he can catch the ball in really tight coverage, which I think is the most likable factor of Jamarr Chase, he's also really good at getting separation as well, like especially in the deep ball. He's a deep ball threat all in all, and he's a guy that you're going to want on your team if you need big plays. You can't just constantly be going for 5-yard outs, 3-yard checkdowns, whatever you want to call it. You got to move the ball down the field fast sometimes, and I think Jamarr Chase is a guy that you want running a streak down the field to go and pick up some big yardage. So that is Jamarr Chase's stats for 2019. Let's get into the most recent Heisman winner, the man, the myth, the legend, Only the third ever wide receiver to win the Heisman Trophy, Mr. Devonte Smith. Devonte, what did you do this year? 13 games because of COVID. You had your 10-game regular season, SEC championship, and then the 2 playoff games. Obviously, Alabama goes on and wins the national championship. 117 receptions for Devonte Smith, 1,856 yards. So right off the bat, Devonte has more receiving yards than Jefferson. He has more receptions than Justin Jefferson. Devonte had a 15.9 average per reception for Alabama this season. Obviously, Jamarr wins that because he had a 20-something. You look at receiving touchdowns, 23 receiving touchdowns for Devonte, and he also had one other on the ground for Alabama this season. Devonte is just a fun player to watch. He's a guy that will catch everything. He's a guy that is just elusive. Like, they call him the Slim Reaper for a reason. Like, you see him just running down the field like it's nothing, absolutely nothing, putting spin moves on. I remember there was this one, I'm pretty sure against Notre Dame or something, where it looked like he should have been tackled 20 yards before the end zone, and he literally just, I don't know what to say. He just, like, walks or makes it look so easy to get past the defenders. He's a guy that is just so much fun to watch once he gets the ball into his hands, and he gets the ball into his hands a lot. Like, this kid could catch the ball, but it's just really, really fun to watch him when he has the ball and he has some open field or 1 or 2 defenders in front of him. That's where you're going to start to see the magic happening for Devonte Smith. You look at the receiving corps he's had last season. Waddle was hurt for most this season. Other than that, you had John Mechie on that team. You had Najee Harris. You had Billingsley. Those are the big guys for Alabama last season. But, like, still, John Mechie was an amazing wide receiver. You had Najee Harris, who, in my opinion, is the best wide receiver, running back in the draft this season. And Mac Jones at quarterback. You still had tons of talent to compete with on that Alabama offense for you to be able to get 117 different receptions for you, 15.9 average for 23 touchdowns. You look at the what is it called? The size difference between these guys. Devontae's 6'1". You have Jamarr at 6 foot, but Jamar's like 200 pounds. You have Devonte Smith at 175 pounds. So Jamarr definitely has the size and the physicality in that sense. Like, we all know, Devontae's not a guy who's going to be like DK Metcalf and really impress you with his size and everything. But I don't think Devonte needs to be a DK Metcalf because he's just so talented with his, like, once he gets the ball in his hands. And he still plays physical, don't get me wrong. Like, this kid will still go up and get balls. He's got an amazing vert and everything. You just have Jamarr with the physical features that when you go up against these bigger cornerbacks in the NFL, because the jump from NFL or college to NFL in terms of going up against the defenses that you play against, it is relevant. It is something that you got to look at. Like, who is the best cornerback that Devonte would have gone up against this year? Stingley, Sean Wade. Who else would have played this season at Alabama? Alabama played. I'm pretty sure those are the only 2 guys that really jump out at me that were the best cornerbacks that Devonte had to go up against this season. Now, Devonte constantly, I'm guessing, has to go up against Patrick Surtain, who's going to be the first cornerback off the board in this draft in practice. So that could be relevant. You look at who did Jamarr go up against that season. Who was the cornerback? So you had like AJ Terrell for Clemson. He would have had to gone up against. He would have had to go up against Patrick Surtain and all the Alabama guys. He would have had to go up against. I don't even know. I don't even know anyone else. But I still think that the difference between college DBs and NFL DBs is going to be a huge difference. Not only in just pure skill, but the size. Size is definitely going to be a thing that is going to be a lot more difficult. So, yes, Jamarr wins the size battle. Devonte, from this, he wins the stat battle. But who would I take? Who would I take right now between Jamar Chase or Devonte Smith? I don't know why that took me so long to say. Well, let's say I'm on the clock. I'm an NFL GM. They're paying me how much? Like, how much do those guys get paid? It must be like 5 to 10 million, something like that. They're paying me $7.5 million a year to make this pick. I'm on my last rope. I need to make a splash with this hit. Our team needs a wide receiver. We have a quarterback. We have a good quarterback. We have a good O-line. We have no one for our quarterback to pass to. Let's just make up the team. Who are we going to be? We're going to be the Wyoming Stallions. That's the new NFL team. The Wyoming Stallions have the 3rd overall pick in the NFL draft. We have our quarterback. We have our offensive line, but who are we going to take at wide receiver? We have no one to throw to. which guy would I want to take here if I had the opportunity to grab either of these guys? Who is going to make the biggest splash in Wyoming and bring a Super Bowl back to Wyoming for the first time ever? Who do I take? Do I take Devonta or Jamarr? I'm a bigger Devonte Smith fan. I know that. I'm a huge Devonte Smith fan, but I still love Justin Jefferson all in all. I loved him at LSU. I don't want to be biased here, but honestly, I love Devonte so much. I want to see Devonte have a better career, but I feel like if I'm stepping out of that bias point, I feel like I'm going to take Jamarr. I don't know why. But I feel like I'm going to take Jamarr Chase with this draft pick. I would not be upset with either of these guys. Both of these guys are going to make a huge splash, but in terms of if I need a guy who's going to make an instant impact in the NFL, I feel like it's going to take a bit longer for Devonte just to get used to how to play NFL football. I don't know why. I think it's the size difference. Like, you have Jamarr, who's 25 pounds more. He's going to be able to go up against those bigger DBs, I think, a bit better than Devonte is. And it's the DBs that you're going up against in the NFL. You're not going to be able to put a spin move on every single one of them and get out of their way. Like, Devonte was absolutely unbelievable. He was a magician doing that in college. I just do not know if that will work right now in the NFL, going up against some of the guys you have in the NFL. So I love Devonte. Don't get me wrong. I'm a bigger Devonte fan than I am Jamarr Chase. But for the Wyoming Stallions, I think I'm taking Jamarr Chase. It's really a tough decision. It's going to be the toughest decision for probably the Miami Dolphins to make in this draft. It's probably the toughest decision in the whole draft. Like, Trevor Lawrence is going to be first off the board. The Jaguars could fall asleep, wake up with 10 seconds on the clock, and they're going to still know who they're going to take. But I think that Jamarr versus Devonte will be the hardest pick of the draft for whoever takes the first wide receiver off the board. So thank you so much for watching this video, guys. I appreciate it. Definitely like down below. Hit the subscribe button. Comment anything about who you think is going to go first, Devonte or you got Jamarr Chase. And thank you for watching, and definitely come back next time.